going to thank you for being here today. We're going to wait another 30 seconds while some people are logging in. Good afternoon and welcome to our September Test Talk, which is the English Learner Overview webinar. We appreciate the time that you took from your busy schedules to be here today, and we would like to start this webinar by thanking you for everything you do in our schools, for our English learners, and really for all our students and families. My name is Antoinette Hallam, and I am the EL and the SAILA Biliteracy Consultant and the Program Manager for the Access English Language Proficiency Assessment, and I will be presenting today. Also here with me are my team members from the assessment team to monitor our meeting and monitor the chat for any questions at the end of the webinar. One focus of this presentation is the identification of English learners. School districts must have procedures in place to accurately and timely identify potential English learners, which I will review in this presentation. Districts should know how to identify English learners and understand both the federal and state law requirements for EL identification. This knowledge will help districts establish a plan for what is required throughout the process, whether districts receive a new immigrant student, a foreign exchange student, or transfer students who are potential English learners, regardless of whether districts receive title funding or not. After this webinar, you will know required timelines in the process, procedures for administering, interpreting, and managing results in the identification process, the 3 steps involved, the need to identify roles and determine who will be responsible for them, the documents that are needed, and that some documents must be shared with families and will need to be translated. Districts must complete the 3-step English learner identification process within 30 days of enrollment or within 14 calendar days if the student enrolls after the first 30 days of the school year. This timeline is crucial for ensuring that districts provide timely English learner services, appropriate support, and intervention tailored to students' unique backgrounds and needs, and that parents are informed about the identification process. The identification of a potential English learner is a 3-step process. The first step is the Home Language Survey, or HLS. The second step is the follow-up family interview. The third step is the English Language Proficiency Screener. And it is important to note that a student cannot be identified as an active English learner based solely on the HLS or any single step. All 3 steps must be completed. Let's take a closer look at the first step and the upcoming slides that we'll discuss, where we will discuss various aspects of the Home Language Survey. This slide emphasizes that the HLS should be a standardized version along with the rules for maintaining either a digital or a hard copy. The HLS must be a standard part of the enrollment process for any new student enrolling in a Wyoming school district for the first time. This requirement also applies for returning students who transfer back to a district after being in another district or state. If a student was enrolled in your district in the previous year or years, their family will not need to complete the HLS again. All students must have an HLS on file, regardless of their family's perceived language proficiency, ethnicity, race, or linguistic background. Districts must use a standardized HLS form throughout the district. This ensures that the same HLS form is used in every school, promoting consistency and clarity in all submissions. Districts are permitted to keep a digital copy of the HLS, but it must be identical in content to the paper copy and recorded electronically. If you have an electronic form, it is acceptable, but it must capture all the mandatory fields. This is important because there may be various reasons for needing this information years later. So we must ensure that all required information is collected and that the HLS is available for auditing purposes. The HLS must include 3 approved Wyoming questions, but districts may also include additional fact-finding questions of their choice. Number 1 is, what language did your child learn when he or she first began communicating? Number 2, what language does your child most frequently use at home? And number 3, what language is used by you and your family most frequently at home? Districts should translate the home language survey into languages commonly spoken in their school and surrounding communities. Sample HLS templates in English and Spanish are available in the EL guidebook, which can be found in the EL webpage. Qualified oral interpreters should also be available when needed to assist families in completing the HLS or other paperwork. We provided an HLS template that includes all the required fields, and I've included that link here. Micah, if you would click on that link, we can open it up for a few seconds and show this resource to see what it looks like and what information must be captured. Okay, so you can see those 3 required questions, the student information. Really important is that name of the person completing the form and that the relationship to the child, and of course the date that the form was completed. Thank you. To obtain accurate, and we'll go ahead and stay on that slide, to obtain accurate information, schools should reassure parents that the HLS is used solely to provide appropriate educational services, not for determining legal status or immigrant purposes. Parents and guardians must also be informed that even if their child is identified as an English learner, they do have the opportunity to decline participation in an EL program or receive specific services within the program. When a student is identified as a potential EL through the HLS, a district will go to the second step of the identification process, the interview. Now, before I move on to the second step, I will review a checklist of items from the U.S. Department of Education that you may use if you are developing your home language survey, revising it, or you just want to improve your procedures in your district relating to administering, interpreting, and managing results. This is a really wonderful resource, and I just want to briefly review. So number 1 is just ensuring that you have a welcoming environment established. Is it welcoming for families? Number 2, standard procedures. Are there standard procedures for administering and interpreting the home language survey? Number 3, responsibilities and methods. Do the procedures specify who is responsible for administering the home language survey? How should it be done? And what formats it should be administered? So whether it's orally or in writing or in a home language translation. Administering the survey orally can be advisable as it allows for immediate clarification of questions, it reduces potential language barriers, and can help ensure that families fully understand the questions that are being asked, if that is a possibility. Number 4, training procedures. Are there procedures in place to document how to train staff who will administer the HLS, and how often might you provide a refresher training course? Do the procedures provide specific guidelines for interpreting HLS responses that include, but are not limited to, the following considerations? Which responses indicate that a student will proceed and go on to step 2, the interview process? How should responses be interpreted as a whole, meaning how to consider the context and overall pattern of the responses to make informed decisions about the student's language needs? What are the next steps if responses are unclear or contradictory? For example, this could involve the follow-up interview with the family to clarify their responses, or seeking input from maybe a bilingual staff or another staff member to ensure accurate understanding. Additionally, do the procedures include methods to record HLS results in the student's permanent records, as well as to document the translation and interpretation needs of the EL parents in the student information system, in the IELP, as well as any kind of communication log maintained by school staff. What is the continuous review process? Is there a process to gather feedback from parents and school personnel? Is there a process to revise the HLS, including a new version when appropriate? And what is the continuous review process to gather feedback from parents and school personnel? Is there a process to revise the HLS when a new version is needed? That concludes our section on the HLS. When a student is identified as a potential EL based on the responses indicating a language other than English, the district will proceed then to step 2, the family interview. There are some requirements to the family interview, such as ensuring that the interview is conducted with the person who completed the home language survey. The format of the interview may vary depending on the method chosen by the district. It can be conducted via phone, in-person, or video conferencing, such as Zoom and Skype, or other methods, at the district's discretion. However, the chosen method should always take into consideration the needs of the parents to ensure effective communication and comfort. Additionally, there are parent interview resources and further information available in the EL guidebook if you would like to learn more. Examples of other questions that might be asked during a family interview are also included in the EL guidebook, which is on the EL webpage, and there's also a video resource and tips for conducting an interview. This step provides an opportunity for districts to ensure accurate HLS responses. Regardless of the format of the interview, it should include a review of the questions answered with a language other than English, and may include, again, additional fact-finding questions chosen by the district. The interview process provides an opportunity to obtain clarification from the family, ensuring that those HLS responses were accurate. And the following questions are required on the home language survey and likely flag the student for the parent interview as a potential English learner. The 3 questions are: what language did your child learn when he or she first began communicating? What language does your child most frequently use at home? And what language is used by you and your family most frequently at home? This slide provides more information on the interview process and additional fact-finding questions that may be chosen by the district. It emphasizes the opportunity for districts to gather more information about each student's language, social, cultural, family, and school history, which can assist in accurately identifying potential English learners. In an HLS question, if an HLS question is answered incorrectly due to a misinterpretation, the district must attach a note explaining the results. The HLS itself should never be altered. For students identified as potential ELs in steps 1 and 2, the next step is to proceed to step 3, the final step of the identification process. The third and final step of the EL identification process is the screener assessment. If the home language survey and follow-up interview indicate that a language other than English is the student's primary language, an English language proficiency screening assessment is administered. There are 3 approved WIDA screeners available depending on the student's grade and the semester in which the assessment is administered. There's the model screener for kindergarten, the WIDA screener for kindergarten, and the WIDA screener for grades 1 through 12. For kindergarten, both the WIDA screener for kindergarten and the kindergarten model are approved screening assessments. For grades 1 through 12, districts are required to use the WIDA screener. In addition to understanding the types of screeners, the following guidelines must be followed when completing a screener assessment. Certification. All EL test administrators must be certified and knowledgeable about the appropriate screener for each student. Annual certification requirement. Test administrators are required to renew their certification annually. In addition to matching a student's grade to the correct screener, a district must also consider the semester. Students who are in the first semester of a grade cluster should take the test for the previous grade. For example, a student in the first semester of fourth grade should take the grade 2-3 cluster test. This procedure is done because these students have not had much exposure to material from their current grade cluster. Here's a chart that helps break this down. Students in the first semester of first grade should take the kindergarten screener or the kindergarten model screener. You can see that this continues all the way to the 12th grade. A student who participates in a screener receives an English language proficiency score that indicates their level of English proficiency. The score determines whether the student is identified as an active English learner. If the student scores below proficient, they are eligible for EL programs and services and will be included in the count of active ELs. Now let's look at the required scores for the English language proficiency screening assessments. This step outlines the specific assessments used for different grade levels and the minimum passing score necessary for identification as an active English learner. For kindergarten, we have the WIDA screener for kindergarten first semester. The administration are the 2 domains of listening and speaking only, and the minimum passing score is a 5.5. The WIDA screener for kindergarten, second semester and first grade, the overall are the 4 domains required, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, with a minimum passing score of a 5.5. In addition to the WIDA screener for kindergarten, we also have the WIDA model for kindergarten, as well as the WIDA screener for grades 1 through 12. This slide contains the details regarding the specific assessments and their minimum passing scores. The WIDA model for kindergarten, first semester, the domains required are listening and speaking only, with a minimum passing score of a 5.0. The WIDA model for kindergarten, second semester and first grade, first semester is the overall composite with all of the domains required, listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and the minimum passing score of a 5.0. WIDA screener for first grade, second semester through 12th grade. The overall composite are all 4 domains required with a minimum passing score of a 4.5. If a student scores below proficient on the English language proficiency screening assessment, the student becomes eligible for EL services and is placed in the appropriate EL program. Additionally, the student will be included in the count of active ELs. There is a new resource that is available this year. It's called the Wyoming English Learners at a Glance Proficiency Criteria for Entry and Exit for EL status. This resource was designed to be a one-page, so all those criteria that I just mentioned, it was designed to be a one-page for easier access to information for districts and is available in the EL guidebook. I will have to say that the 2024-25 EL guidebook has not been released yet, but it should be released any day. And this one-page resource will have all the proficiency criteria for all the EL assessments, which will include the screeners and the access tests. Notification to families of ELs. The requirement that ESEA mandates that parents of students identified as active ELs must be notified about their child's identification and placement in EL services. This notification must occur within 30 days of the start of the school year or 14 calendar days if the student enrolls after the first 30 days of the school year. Important to note that you will notice that the timeline for notifying parents of their child's identification and placement in EL services aligns with the timeline for actually identifying the students in the three-step process. Parent involvement. Parents play a crucial role in their child's education and the decision-making process. Their engagement is vital for the success of EL services and the overall educational experience. Districts may need to do a language needs assessment. Each LEA or district is required to develop and implement a process to determine whether the parents are limited English proficient parents, and they may need some translation, the specific language needs of the parents. This assessment should be conducted as early as possible to ensure timely support and communication. Some districts I've noticed collect this information during that enrollment process and also include it in the home language survey. Additionally, the notice and information provided must be in a clear and a uniform format in a language that the parents can understand. This ensures that all parents are fully informed about their child's educational rights and services, fostering meaningful participation in their child's education. Districts may need to provide translation and interpretations to accommodate the diverse language needs with our families. The parent notification must include 7 components that are required. The first one is the reason for the identification of their child as an EL. Number 2, the child's level of English language proficiency, how that level was assessed, and the status of the child's academic achievement. Number 3, methods of instruction used in the program in which the child is or will be participating, and the methods of instruction used in other available programs, including how the programs differ. Number 4, how the program will meet the educational strengths and needs of the child and help the child achieve EL proficiency and meet academic standards. Number 5, exit requirements for the program, the expected rate of transition to a classroom not tailored for EL students, and expected rate of high school graduation. Number 6, in the case of a child with a disability, how the program meets the annual goals in the child's IEP. And the last one is information regarding parents' rights to withdraw the child from a program upon the request and to decline enrollment or choose another program or method of instruction. And just to note for number 7, if a family member declines the EL program and services, that still requires the child to participate in the annual assessment. There's no opt-out for that. Now that a student has qualified for English Learner Services, the district will need to create an individual English Learner Plan, or IELP, for each EL student. The IELP is a comprehensive document that outlines various aspects of supporting English learner students. These 2 slides contain key elements of the IELP, although there are additional components and details that further enhance its effectiveness and does not include everything. An IELP is a locally created document that outlines the program and strategies tailored to meet the academic and language needs of the EL student. It also sets specific goals to be implemented in the classroom and assessments aimed at helping and monitoring the student's success. IELP should be individualized, and a language support team can collaboratively decide how to create and share the IELP for each English learner. What is an IELP? An IELP is locally created. It must describe the language instruction educational program, or LIEP, that is being used to help an EL gain proficiency while meeting academic standards. And usually what you see in the LIEP is how often is the EL being provided, services, how often is the student throughout the day. You might see like how many hours throughout the week and which days during the week is that student being provided those services. Addresses the academic and language needs of the student and strategies, and sets specific goals for classroom implementation and assessments. Purpose of the IELP: to help and monitor EL students' success, to document requirements and progress towards meeting academic and language goals, and to outline accommodations and supports needed for testing and classroom instruction. The language support team plays a crucial role in developing and implementing an individual English Learner Plan, or IELP, for each EL student. This collaborative team, consisting of various stakeholders, it could include the EL student, different caregivers, EL educators, classroom teachers, counselors, school administrators, people that work together to assess the unique academic and language needs of each student. By leveraging the diverse expertise and perspectives, the team ensures that the IELP addresses not only the educational goals of the student, but also the necessary accommodations and supports, and can also include functional, personal, and cultural goals for successful classroom integration and testing. And below are some key components that contribute to the effective functioning of the language support team. Excuse me. So some of the components that I mentioned contribute to the effective functioning of the language support team's work. Now let's move to the required scores on the annual English language proficiency access assessment. To exit from the English learner status, students must meet the following criteria on the annual Access English language proficiency assessment: an overall composite score of a 4.6 and a literacy composite score of a 4.3. For students taking the annual WIDA Alt Access English Language Proficiency Assessment, the exit criteria currently is to be determined, and we will provide more information as it does become available. It's important to share these scores when they are available with both parents and students, as they do play a crucial role in understanding the student's progress and readiness to transition out of English learner services. Assessing English learners is crucial for understanding their progress in acquiring academic English. The Access for ELLs assessment is a secure, large-scale English language proficiency assessment designed specifically for students from kindergarten through 12th grade who have been identified as an English learner. This assessment is administered annually to monitor students' growth in academic English skills. In the field of assessing English learners, it's important to understand the available formats for the kindergarten and Alt Access for ELLs assessments. These assessments are specifically designed to evaluate the language proficiency of young learners, and the methods of administration plays a crucial role in ensuring effective evaluation. While the kindergarten and Alt Access assessments are exclusively available in a paper-based format, the Wyoming Department of Education advocates for online testing when feasible, but allows districts the flexibility to choose the method that best meets the needs of their students, taking into account individual circumstances that may favor one format over the other. Now, the kindergarten and Alt Access for ELs assessments are only available in a paper-based format, just as an emphasis. But we do have the 1st through 3rd grade writing, which also is a format, paper format as well. The WIDA Alt Access assessment is specifically designed to meet the needs of active EL students with significant cognitive disabilities. This assessment can be administered to those students who qualify for Wyoming's YALT summative assessment and are receiving special education services. The Alt Access for ELLs was developed to complement WIDA's existing English language proficiency standards, enabling ELs with the most significant cognitive disabilities to demonstrate their language growth. The Alt Access for ELLs is an annual paper-based assessment, which helps educators monitor progress for students in acquiring academic English. It evaluates students across the 4 key language domains of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, providing a comprehensive view of their language development. TA certification. Wyoming requires biannual certification for TAs to administer the Access for ELLs or the WIDA Alt Access for English Language Proficiency Assessments. Certification includes completion of a training course and the appropriate quizzes. It is highly recommended to review the information each year. That recertification is not required. Next thing I would like to mention is the Access Assessment Confidential. And in order to have access to it, you will need a WIAD portal account. This is essential for English learner district coordinators and school administrators to connect to the Assessment Confidential. It's important to understand who has access and how to obtain the necessary permission to utilize this portal. To sign in, again, only EL district coordinators and school administrators will have a WIAD user account with that Assessment Confidential role, unless you request that someone else be granted that permission. So if educators do not have access to the portal, then those people who have access will need to share the information in the portal with those educators. If you would like other people to have access, you definitely can request additional people in your district. Now, instructions for logging into the Assessment Confidential, you will follow those steps. You'll click onto the WD website, click onto data, click on the hub for more, and then you'll click on other data reporting, click on district data reports, and then you'll be able to select the access report. This report will be the most current available for the year. You can choose the current year, and you can also go back up to 4 years. You can view data for individual schools. You may also view all the schools in your district. It is a very large report. This is the only place where you will be able to access your student annual targets, what their goals are. You'll be able to see the first year that they tested and qualified for access, and you will be able to see the formula that calculates the trajectory of when the students should exit and their annual targets each year. The WD 684 data collection overview. The Wyoming Department of Education collects data through the WD 684 3 times a year. Key data elements will relate specifically to active English learners and their monitor status. There are 3 collection windows. In the fall, you will see a window from October 2nd through October 13th. This is when districts will go in and report your active English learners or monitoring students. And then after that window, after October 13th, we'll be able to get an error report. And if your district has an error, we will work with you for about a couple of weeks to ensure that those errors are corrected. In the spring window, March 1st through March 14th, again, we'll have a couple of weeks after that to correct any errors, any reporting errors. And at the end of the year, May 17th through June 26th. Okay, this slide, I've included a couple of links that are helpful and may be useful for you. The Wyoming WIDA EL page lists all of the assessment windows and other dates for the year, for the 24-25 school year. The EL guidebook, we do have the 23-24 guidebook available. If you have not seen it, a lot of that information is still applicable, but the 24-25 yearbook is coming out soon, hopefully by next week. The EL Educator webpage in the district resource website, hopefully everybody has found that by now. And we have the EL webpage and the home language survey templates. And I Do want to add that we have a save the date for our next test talk. Join us for our next test talk on October 10th from 1 to 3 o'clock. Some of these times are a little bit different. This session will focus on the important topic of monitoring, where we will discuss best practices, strategies, and tools to effectively monitor student progress. Don't miss this opportunity to enhance your understanding and share insights with your colleagues. So we have plenty of time now. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If you would like to unmute or type them in the chat. If no one has any questions, we will still wait for a few minutes.
Yes, we'll be sharing the slides and the video recording of this webinar on the website as well in a public access folder. So be on the lookout. We'll put out information on when those all get posted as well.
We will definitely be here for a few minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or write your question in the chat. And if not, we appreciate you attending today and hope you will make our next test talk in October.
Sorry, I do have a question. So I downloaded the Department of Education's 23-24 English Learner Assessment in Title III, but I couldn't find the appendices. Is that a separate link?
So are you talking about the one that you downloaded versus the ones I've referenced?
Right. So I downloaded, so maybe I just put it in a wrong spot here. But I couldn't, it said that there were appendices, but I could not find appendices attached.
We do have some appendices in the EL guidebook. Yes.
EL guidebook?
Yes, and I think you're holding the EL guidebook. That looks like the EL guidebook.
Yes, I didn't.
Yes.
And maybe I'm looking in the wrong spot, but I didn't find the appendices attached.
Okay, they last time I looked, they were in there, but something may have happened.
Okay.
I'd be happy.
It might be an operator error, so I apologize if I
No,
overlooked
Sarah,
that.
if you would like to give, do I have you in our EL contact?
I don't know if you do or not. Can I send you my email?
Yes, please. If you do that, I will make sure you have the EL guidebook with the attachments or the links to those.
Okay. Okay. I guess it might have just been something I overlooked, but just in case not.